There's something special about Sundays. There's something, I won't say magical, but it's very special to me. And every time we walk into the center, I say to Reverend Michael, and we were here this morning about 8:30, having an opportunity to work electronically. Many of you know that I have probably a better handle on life if I can push a button on and off. But yesterday was a very busy day. Reverend Michael and I officiated at a memorial in the morning, and last evening we were at a wedding and performed the marriage ceremony for this young couple. And it was a great experience, but in between, I was to get my lesson completed. Well, that was what I manifest. I finished the lesson, and then I sent it to the church. And so we got here this morning early so I could review it, and it wouldn't print. It got here, but it wouldn't come up. So Michael went home to get the laptop, and in his wonderful knowledge, he immediately sent it to Dr. Carolyn, and she printed it. So she's my angel today. We know we all have them. So blessings and thank you, Dr. Carolyn. This month, Reverend Michael and I have selected The Science of Getting Rich by Wallace D. Wattles, and it's far more than money, as many of you know that are taking the 4T class with us. Not 4T, Prosperity Plus. But this is what I want to extract and share with you this morning. The scientific use of thought consists in forming a clear, distinct mental image of what you want and holding fast to the purpose to get what you want, and in realizing with grateful faith that you do get what you want. So there is that mental tuition that we pay for that, with correct thought, directing of that correct thought, and allowing that thought to come into your life. So on with the lesson. And it's entitled The Naturalness of Nature. And you know, the naturalness of nature is to be comfortable, to be life-affirming, to be supportive, and it carries an abundance of good to our life. Now we have to claim that good. We have to walk up to it and grasp it. We have to take it, bring it into ourselves, allow it to be part of our life. In my Italian heritage, comfort's very important. I can remember so many wonderful dinners and things. You know, there's nothing better than a full tummy and that mellow feeling of a glass of wine or two, or three, if you're not driving. And there's that interchange between families. And I know within my family, when all were on the planet, we'd speak with the family, we'd speak with the friends, we'd enter each other's conversation. Not rude, well, I can't say it wasn't rude, we'd just butt right in and say what we thought. And we'd enter into those conversations and we'd allow it. And we'd contradict each other. And we'd talk and walk and eat and have a good time. Then we'd get mad and go home. I think that's the temperament sometimes of the Genoveses. But you know, I really bless all those wonderful memories. And I can't replay all of the altercations, but they do serve purpose. And it's with fondness that I do remember some of them. So I'm talking today about a lot of how family has interspersed and directed in my life. And so since you are my family, you'll have about 20 minutes of this. You can get up and run if you choose. I would appreciate it if you'd stay here till we have fellowship. And speaking of fellowship, I don't want you to go home mad after the lesson. I want you to go in and have it's going to be a luncheon practically. I saw all the food angels flying in. Their wings were loaded with all this good stuff. So I want you to go in, have a good time, not get mad, but return again. That's what it's all about. You know, nature is rich in blessings. And last week, Reverend Michael spoke of how the seasons bring us an awareness to what comes into our life. That there is the change, and we benefit from the changes of nature. And there's a supportive nature, a good nature. And we know there's more than the colorful leaves, but I certainly love the autumn colors. Orange isn't one of my star colors, but I do like all the autumn tones. And there's something about it that allows that seasonal change to be known to us. So what you are today is my family, my church family, and the ones that I reach out to. Like this morning, we had a demonstration of what friends do for one another. And when we meet these friends on our path of life, we have that opportunity to exchange the pleasantries and all. A family given growing up was a wicker basket at the back door. So, and it's always filled with scarpe, that's Italian for shoes. And so I have a little story about shoes. And it was just, it still is. And I want to say at our home, I have a basket at the back door, and Reverend Michael has a basket at the back door. But I think my basket's a little fuller because I tend to hold on to things up until now. And so what I share with you today is one of my favorite pair of shoes with a broken back heel. You know, the heel is gone, there's a hole in the sole, but I've kept them. They're comfortable. I can water and garden in those. And then there was this pair of shoes that I bought on sale. Cole Haan, 50% off. But it's too small, I can't fit in them, but I bought them anyhow. Anybody like that? We hold on to those small thoughts. And then there's these shoes, which I can't get on because it just doesn't feel good. And then here's another one of the scarpes with a flattened out look. I have 2 or 3 pairs. And what I do know that those hold the shoes up in the bottom of the basket so it's fuller. I look full and rich and I have an abundant one. And then this one too, isn't that a sad sucker? I just laugh at that. You ever just think that we walk through life on these feet of ours and we're scuffling along? No wonder I had a hip replacement. And this is one of my favorite ones. These shoes should be shot and thrown away. The soles are gone. But I saved them. Don't ask me for what. But I was going through the shoe basket this morning, or last night, and I was setting up for today's lesson. It reminded me of my Italian grandmother. She raised conigi, that's Italian for rabbits, and she saved everything, let me tell you. Everything she saved for it had a purpose. Widowed with 8 kids, but all under the age of 12, so there wasn't a lot of discretionary income. She would take the tongues out of the shoes and make hinges for the rabbit hutch. Now that's being practical, isn't it? Isn't that using your resources? I know that in my life I could probably have made better use of my resources and be a little more saving and thrifty. That isn't my nature. I like pretty, she liked practical, and I bless her for that. And I have a little bit of that in me. But what I can tell you, that as we move into life and as we move into all that we give and have and share in life, that these shoes that are too small to wear are like thoughts that are so petty and negative that we don't need to use them. Get rid of them. Toss them aside. Let the new come into our life. And we know that probably none of us are going to, I know I won't be raising rabbits, so why would I save a pair of shoes to get the tongue out of them? But I do, and I did, up until now. I do know that on next Friday when the garbage man comes, this basket will be empty. They're too shot to have and serve no purpose to have recyclability. I mean, that would just break down the machine if I tried to chew it up. I mean, there's no reason for saving this except that's the way I was raised. So I do know that as I walk in these smashed down backs, they are kind of comfortable. And I know all the Genoveses that I know love to slip into their shoes. And that's why we have the broken down back in them. So I think that sliders, that's what I like to call these, do serve a purpose, but I can buy a pair of flip-flops and that'll do the same thing. So there's my story on shoes. You know, like the scarpe, there is a natural comfort in nature. It feels good. It's supportive and kind. It's like an old t-shirt or my rump-sprung Levi's that I just love. There's something that just allows us that caressing and that goodness. It feels good. Nature becomes us as we become nature. We become that which we are by using the powers not only of the science of mind that we teach here at the center, and all of Dr. Holmes' wonderful intuitive teachings that he's brought to us. We use it because nature is always our great support team. There's a divine harmony in nature. There's an order, there's a balance, there's a feeling of richness and goodness. Nature and divine harmony is present in all that we do. It's simple. We simply must not deny it. We must turn to it, absorb from it, and use that which we learn to better our life and allow our life to be that which we choose. Affirming it will never make it any more than it is. It works in the way that it is. It just is. And as we surrender to and allow that goodness to come to us, we act toward it rather than react to it. We allow it space to present itself. In order, this is an essence and a feeling, and I like to think that what we receive from it is that we receive exactly what we think of it. It is done to us as we truly believe. It's all in our mental thought. So if you believe in chicken feathers or boneless, skinless, seasoned chicken breasts, it's what you think about it. And last night at the wedding, it was so funny. They had this wonderful big buffet. I'll just digress a minute here. And it was a beautiful table. And we went out to have dinner, and then we came back into a big tent to have the meal. Very lovely, all autumn tone flowers, pumpkins with flowers, and it was just great. Well, anyhow, they had a total whole roasted pig that was probably the size of the lectern, don't you think, Reverend Mike? Okay, it was just huge. And they were slicing it, and they had bratwurst, and they had chicken. Well, one of the groomsmen I became very fond of. He is just a great big Irishman with a bushy red beard, and lives in Philadelphia, has a butcher shop, and went to culinary school with the bride and the groom. Well, what was so funny about him, he said, "Why are you taking chicken? That's disgusting. It's just a dinosaur with feathers." And I said, "I'll never look at chicken the same way." I laughed and I thought, oh gosh. He was so offended. He said, "Have more pork." And it was wonderful. But I like a little of all of it, you know. That's what life is about. Have a spoon of this and a spoon of that. Well, anyhow, it works in the way it works. And I allowed that to be last night. It was just great. But there is a simplicity in order, in divine order. It's orchestrated by a power that's greater than we are. We use that power. That power resides within. There's a naturalness and an ease and a life-affirming good. It's a spiritual good that is being revealed. And we call forth and accept that with joy. Divine nature is the true nature of all things. It is that grandness. It's like the scarpe. Divine nature is a supportive soul. And our soul, we're pleased to say today that none of us have holes in our soul. Maybe scattered and shattered thinking. But our soul is whole, perfect, and complete. Our physical soul. Now the soles on my shoe are not, and they would not hold water, most of them. But they have served a purpose, and that purpose is no longer required by me. So we get on with it, get rid of it. No, God cannot speak a word which contradicts its own nature. For God is pure intelligence. It's the thing itself. It's that inner knowing. And since we are one with and of that spiritual presence in our life, we create that nature with God and of God, and become that which we truly, truly desire. In Tuesday night's class at Prosperity Plus, Mary Morrissey shared, we are always blessed by the power of spirit and divine nature, and that we are. We might not always recognize that, but it is our requirement and desire to turn inward and recognize that power. What I like to think about those two things, that they are divine companions, sharing our path and allowing that goodness to be ours. I believe that to be in good company, we must practice those principles. of giving, sharing, receiving, honoring, and knowing, allowing that goodness to be into our lives. You know, God gives us dominion over all earthly things. Do we use it? Probably not to the full use that we could. I'm hoping that all of you who are hearing me today will reevaluate your thought. Take control, take choice, make choices that serve your highest and greatest good. One thing I do know, that we are not given the power to govern the universe. We are given the power to have dominion and make the choices that serve our needs to the utmost good. So it rests within the individual how we accept, how we live, and how we take this principle, the religious science principles, and make them work for us. And we know that when we make the choices that are the highest and greatest for us, that we live a life that is friendly and compatible, that we do not compromise principle. It never takes second place. It must always be our first choice. That when we live in that authentic, true nature, there's an abundance of all good that comes to us. So what I want to ask you, what is in your wicker basket? Now, I hope you don't have this many pairs of shoes. You might want to clean out your closet and throw the things that don't fit. If the negative thinking is in your mind, get rid of it. Allow the goodness that is yours to come into your life. If the heels are broken down on something, get rid of it. And I don't think any of you are raising rabbits now. Maybe Marlene and Ross, I don't know if they might be raising rabbits. And if you want some tongues to make hutch hinges out of, I'll see that you get them, Marlene. Send that home for Ross. So whatever is at the doorway in your wicker basket, do a little housekeeping. It's autumn. And the days are shorter, so you might have more time indoors than out of doors, so you can clean up what might need to be cleaned up in your life. You know, when we get rid of cluttered thoughts of what was and what should have been, we have that opportunity to welcome the new into us. And when we welcome that new, there is a divine, appropriate feeling. It supports and does good things for us. Toss aside those shoes that serve no purpose. And if, you know, it needs to be cleared out mentally. And when we allow gratitude to be our guide, and by the way, Michael, your meditation was wonderful today. It was very supportive and felt so good. That when we live our life with gratitude, we truly are living the spiritual principle. But I know for myself that I cannot live without having and showing and expressing gratitude, because it brings me to a level of appropriate consciousness. I rise up to that. You've heard me say many times that we're placed on the planet to serve and to allow that goodness that we are to express that our total, whole, complete self. And when we have a grateful mind, it's consistently fixed upon the best. And when we have the best, we use the best. Speaking of my Italian grandmother, she saved everything, like I said, and I think I might have shared this in one lesson before, that when she left Johnsville up in Plumas County to move to Oakland, one of her greatest desires every year was to receive a box of those chocolate-covered cherries. She never opened them or ate them. She was going to save them. She had like 16 or 17 pounds of chocolate-covered cherries that had atrophied when she moved. We must not allow that kind of pleasure into our life. Atrophied thoughts cripple us. So toss them away, Granny, and move into this thought of having sufficient and plenty in all of life. My supply depends upon Spirit alone and my willingness to think in terms of God's abundance. And God is an abundant, giving thought. God is pure spirit in action. God gives us the opportunities for dominion, the power to think creatively and to choose the thoughts to create the world that works for us. It works for everyone. And when we allow that world to work for everyone, we're living in harmony and balance in the goodness that is ours. And what I know is that when I use my thought power to think thoughts of love, to think thoughts of peace and health, world harmony, a world without war, a world without conflict, a social life that is complete, that's respecting and honoring all people, all colors, all faith, all walks of their lives and our lives, that we're living a prosperous divine life. We're living the science of getting rich by thinking the way we think. And if it's poor thoughts and 1 penny thoughts, bump it up to a $1 thought or a $10 thought or a $1 million thought. I choose the scarpe with new soles that fit well. And these are all taking a trip. They're going to have an eternal life that no longer requires my basket to be this full. So I know that what I choose now in thought is fresh, new, supportive, and I honor all of the Italian shoemakers like Ferragamo and Gucci and Bruno Maglia and Versace. So I conclude today's celebration by taking dominion of my thought and knowing and affirming, not only for myself, but for you most of all. Clean out the wicker basket at your doorway. And my lesson ends in love. And we have one more